Solasta 2 has just hit early access, a tactical RPG built on the new 2024 D&D rule set, with a brand new world to explore, a cast of characters you make yourself, and all the dice rolls you could ever need. I've already had the luxury of playing and beating the early access, and let me tell you, I had an absolute blast. I'm very excited for the future of this game, and I want to make sure it is on all of your radars. This is not really going to be a review, just more of a first impression overview style video. And big thanks to Tactical Adventures for providing me with a key. So now let's get right into it. Before we dive fully in, let's give some quick context. Solasta 2 is a tactical RPG developed by Tactical Adventures and published by Kepler Interactive. And it's dropping into early access on Steam tomorrow, March 12th. One of the most exciting parts is that it's built on the actual current D&D rule set, which means you are playing something that is mechanically somewhat faithful to the tabletop experience. Although the developers are absolutely not afraid to homebrew things when necessary. If Baldur's Gate was your gateway into this style of game, Solasta 2 will feel immediately familiar, but it's not trying to be Baldur's Gate 3. In the early access, it tends to lean harder into the more tactical and combat systems driven side of D&D. Now of course, you do not need to know anything about D&D to enjoy this game. Solasta onboards you from zero. There are quick character creation options and adjustable difficulty settings to ease newcomers in. So now let's dive into the story, and I'll try to keep spoilers minimal here. Solasta 2 kicks off with the death of Ma Hin. She is the adoptive mother of the siblings who are at the center of the narrative. Her funeral brings together the 4 player-controlled adopted siblings, along with her other children, Rickard and Diorcus Colwall. And what starts as a family reunion quickly devolves into chaos. Through an act of divine intervention, the whole group is transported to a completely unknown continent called Neokos, where they exist in the unknown, completely stranded. Almost immediately, they realize they've landed right in the middle of an ancient conflict that their adoptive mother has left unresolved. And the threat at the center of it all is a woman named Shadwin, an ancient deity-like figure whose corruption is spreading across the land. What I do love about this story is that it really ties your player-created group together. This is ultimately a story about family and how your decisions shape them and the world around them. The fate of Neokos is going to be shaped by the decisions you make throughout the game, with multiple endings promised and never a correct way to do things, just the story that you want to tell. Also, as a side note, the voice acting for this game is absolutely stacked. Shadwin is voiced by Amelia Tyler, who you know as the narrator of Baldur's Gate 3. Rickard Colwall is voiced by Ben Starr, who is in literally everything at this point. Diorcus Colwall is voiced by Devora Wild, who is also from Clair Obscur and Baldur's Gate 3, and a major faction leader, Anabasia, is voiced by Ellen Thomas, who played Ambessa in Arcane. Personally, I'm typically not someone who really cares about who my voice actors are, but more so than just the talent production that this cast brings, it signals to me that Tactical Adventures is just not messing around with this game. They're going all in on making a top-tier product, which is giving me a massive amount of faith in the future. So now let's talk about the actual gameplay. Of course, you'll start in character creation with not just a single protagonist, you will create every single one of the 4 adopted siblings. Their class, their ancestry, their look, their name. You are building your whole crew from scratch, and then you take them into the world together. It's a very different approach to Baldur's Gate 3, where you play one character and recruit the companions with their own fixed backstories. In here, every character in the party is an extension of you. The trade-off is that you do lose some of the deep individual companion arcs that Baldur's Gate 3 does so well, but what you gain is total ownership over who you are playing. With that being said, the adopted siblings framing is quite clever, because our characters aren't strangers. They have a shared history, which means the dialogue is reactive, the banter during exploration feels natural, and moments of conflict or agreement feel real. One of the really cool things Solasta does is give your characters a role within the family at the very beginning. For example, one of your characters will be the golden child, who is always mother's favorite. One will be the bad kid who is always punished. One will be the de facto leader of the group, and the last is the smarty pants of the team. This, with the fully voiced dialogue, makes your group feel like actual people. You'll travel with this band of misfits by the use of an overworld map, which will force you to rest with long travels. And it makes it so that roads are quicker. There's also random new events popping up within your journeys to go and explore. At Early Access launch, you'll have 4 ancestries to choose from: human, elf, dwarf, and halfling. And as for classes, we are getting 6 at tomorrow's launch. The classes being fighter, sorcerer, rogue, cleric, wizard, and of course the most important of all, which is paladin, with 13 subclasses included across those classes. And importantly, there is also multi-classing right out of the gate. So for you theory crafters, the combinations are already pretty solid. The level cap for early access is only level 4, which is pretty standard for an Act 1 experience. But the roadmap promises a higher level cap, new classes, and new ancestries as early access continues. This is a very early version of the game. As I mentioned earlier, the game uses the most up-to-date version of D&D, the 5th edition rules. This means you will notice some differences from the Baldur's Gate 3 experience. Combat is fully turn-based on a hex grid map. You move, you have an action, you have a bonus action. Every decision matters because actions are a finite resource each turn. Your positioning also matters, cover matters, the verticality of the environment matters, and the actual environment itself matters, with hazards strewn into the battlefields, as you will quickly notice while playing the beta. Where Baldur's Gate 3 gives you a lot of freedom to move around the battlefield and rewards creative chaos, Solasta 2 feels a lot more deliberate with its combat. It does not really include the Larian charm of barrelmancy or setting everything in the world on fire, which I don't really see as a negative or a positive. It's simply just Tactical Adventure's own take on the topic. I can say from personal experience playing the early access build, the combat encounters were very fun. Each one felt distinct, not just a repeat of the last fight with a fresh coat of paint. The enemy variety, the terrain, the D&D systems, all within, kept me engaged from start to finish. My favorite moments in the whole early access came from the combat. Because of that, most of the footage that I'm showing in the background is not the cool fights because I just don't want to spoil you guys. Behind all of this hype, it is important to set expectations because this is early access, and I think it's important to be real about what that means. At this launch, you're getting a large chunk of Act 1, which for most is going to be 10 to 15 hours of content, featuring a full interactive world map, hidden bosses, bonus locations to discover, and the complete character creation that I described. For now, it's only single player at launch, but multiplayer for up to 4 players is confirmed as upcoming content. Tactical Adventures has informed us that they hope for this early access to be about roughly a year long before the full game comes out. The roadmap for what's next includes new ancestries, new classes, a higher level cap, multiplayer support, a full faction system, and crafting. And of course, we need to be transparent about bugs. This is an early access and it is pretty rife with bugs right now, which to be fair is expected in something launching this early. This is literally what early access is for, to iron out these issues. The team has acknowledged a handful of issues with us content creators and these are being documented. The team is aware of them and they are actively working through them. Even with a handful of bugs in my pocket, it never crushed my enthusiasm for the game. I truly enjoyed every second I spent playing Solasta 2. So that is my first look for Solasta 2. If Baldur's Gate 3 is the benchmark, Solasta 2 isn't trying to beat it at its own game, it's making its own mark. If you are at all a fan of BG3, you should definitely check this out as it will probably be the only thing to scratch that itch until Divinity launches in a few years. The promise of where this is going with multiplayer, new classes, faction systems, and a full campaign beyond Act 1 has me very excited to watch this one develop. I will likely have more to say about this one as early access progresses, so if you enjoy this or other RPG content, then make sure you're subscribed. And if you've already got your own thoughts on Solasta 2, drop them in the comments. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.